The grinding sound of metal against metal echoed through the mining stations. Corridors as Marcus Reed wiped sweat from his brow. Another 12-hour shift maintaining the extraction equipment on Kepler Station, humanity's most remote outpost in the Outer Rim. At 32, Marcus had spent 8 years fixing everything from atmospheric processors to gravity generators. Earning a reputation as the best engineer in 3 sectors, the station felt emptier than usual tonight. Most of the crew had shipped out on the monthly supply run, leaving only a skeleton crew behind. Marcus preferred it this way. Fewer people meant fewer distractions from his work. He gathered his tools and headed toward the supply shed to inventory replacement parts for tomorrow's repairs. The shed door stood slightly ajar, which was odd since he always kept it locked. Marcus frowned and pushed it open, expecting to find another crew member borrowing equipment without permission. Instead, discovered something that made his heart skip a beat. A small figure huddled behind a stack of metal pipes, trembling violently. It was clearly not human. The skin had a pale, silvery hue that seemed to shimmer in the dim light, and the ears were pointed and elongated. The creature appeared to be a child, no more than 7 or 8 years old by human standards, wearing tattered clothing that might once have been elegant. "Hey there, Marcus," said softly. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." The child's large, luminous blue eyes stared at him with a mixture of terror and desperation. It said something in a musical language he didn't recognize, the words tumbling out in what sounded like pleading. Marcus noticed the child was painfully thin, clearly malnourished, and exhausted. "Are you hungry?" Marcus asked, miming eating motions with his hands. The child seemed to understand and nodded frantically, tears streaming down its face. Marcus's engineering mind immediately went to work. He didn't know what this species could safely consume, but he could analyze the child's biological needs using the station's medical scanner. "Come with me," he said gently, extending his hand. "I'm going to help you." The child hesitated, then slowly reached out and took his hand. The touch was surprisingly warm, and Marcus felt a protective instinct surge through him that he'd never experienced before. He led the child to the medical bay, speaking in soothing tones even though he knew it couldn't understand his words. The medical scanner revealed fascinating information about the child's physiology. The species required a specific mineral composition in their food, along with trace amounts of bioluminescent algae that the station's hydroponic gardens happened to cultivate. Marcus quickly synthesized a nutritional paste that should be safe and nourishing. As the child ate hungrily, Marcus studied the scanner readings more carefully. The species appeared to be what xenobiologists called Zephyrians, a proud... What was a Zephyrian child doing alone on a human mining station in the middle of nowhere? The child finished eating and looked up at Marcus with gratitude that transcended language barriers. For the first time, it smiled a radiant expression that transformed its entire face. Marcus felt something shift in his chest, a warmth he hadn't felt since his sister died in the war 5 years ago. "We need to figure out what happened to you," Marcus said. Though he suspected the answer would be tragic, pirates and slavers often targeted isolated settlements, and Zephyrian biotechnology was valuable on the black market. The child curled up on the medical bed, finally succumbing to exhaustion. Marcus found himself unwilling to leave, so he pulled up a chair and kept watch. Tomorrow, he would need to decide what to do, but tonight, he would make sure this innocent being felt safe for the first time in what was probably weeks. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead, and somewhere among them, Marcus knew, were people looking for this child. He just hoped the ones who found them first would be friends, not enemies. Marcus woke to the sound of movement in the medical bay. Dawn's cycle was beginning, casting artificial sunlight through the station's viewports. The Zephyrian child, who had slept peacefully for 8 hours, was now sitting up and looking around with curious eyes rather than fearful ones. "Good morning," Marcus said, offering another portion of the synthesized food he'd prepared. The child accepted it gratefully and began to eat with better manners than the desperate hunger of the night before. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting
"A treat to the medical bay?"
Marcus frowned. The skeleton crew shouldn't need medical attention. He activated the intercom. "Medical bay is occupied. "Come back later, I'm looking for someone," came a voice from the other side of the door. The voice was distinctly feminine, with the same musical quality as the child's language. But this speaker was using accented but fluent standard. "A child, Zephyrian. I tracked their biosignature to this station." Marcus's hand moved instinctively. "To the emergency lockdown controls?" "There's no one here by that description, please," the voice continued, and Marcus could hear genuine emotion in it. "I mean no harm. The child's name is Kira. I've been searching for weeks. The Zephyrian child." Kira suddenly perked up at the sound of the voice. A stream of excited words poured from the child's mouth, and small hands pressed against the door. Kira clearly recognized whoever was outside. Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He opened the door. The being standing in the corridor took his breath away. She was clearly adult Zephyrian, tall and graceful, with the same silvery skin as Kira. But where the child appeared delicate, this woman radiated strength and purpose. Her long, platinum hair was woven with some kind of fiber that caught the light like captured starshine. She wore form-fitting tactical gear that accentuated curves while maintaining obvious functionality for combat. But it was her eyes that captivated Marcus, deep violet, intelligent and filled with relief as she saw Kira. The child ran to her, chattering excitedly in their native language. "Thank you," the woman said to Marcus over Kira's head, her violet eyes meeting his. "I am Tessa of the Ninth House. You have cared for royal blood." "Royal blood?" Marcus repeated, suddenly understanding why someone might hunt this child. Tessa lifted Kira effortlessly, and the child wrapped thin arms around her neck. "Kira is the last of the direct bloodline. Slavers destroyed our settlement 3 weeks ago. I managed to escape with Kira, but we were separated during a skirmish near the asteroid belt." Marcus studied Tessa's face, noting the exhaustion hidden beneath her composed exterior. "You've been fighting alone for 3 weeks?" "Zephyrian warriors are trained from childhood," she replied with pride, though her voice carried a note of wariness. "But even we have limits. Are you hurt?" Marcus asked, his engineer's eye, noting scorch marks on her gear and a slight favor she was giving her left leg. Tessa seemed surprised by his concern. "Minor injuries only. Nothing that won't heal." "Let me check anyway," Marcus insisted. "If you're protecting Kira, you need to be in peak condition." Something shifted in Tessa's expression as she studied his face. "You are different from what I expected of humans. The stories we hear speak of your people as driven only by profit and expansion. Some are," Marcus admitted, preparing the medical scanner. "But not all of us." As he worked to treat a plasma burn on Tessa's shoulder, found himself acutely aware of her proximity. Her skin was warm beneath his touch, and when she winced at his ministrations, he felt an unexpected urge to comfort her. "Why help us?" Tessa asked softly as he applied a healing gel to the wound. "You could have turned Kira over to station security. Harboring refugees brings complications." Marcus paused in his work, considering the question. Because it was the right thing to do. Because no child should face the universe alone. Tessa's violet eyes searched his face, and he felt as though she was looking directly into his soul. "You lost someone young," she said suddenly. "I can see it in your eyes." "My sister," Marcus admitted. "She was Kira's age when the war took her." Understanding passed between them, deeper than words. Tessa reached up and touched his cheek gently. "Then you understand what family means." The simple touch sent warmth spreading through Marcus's entire body. He realized he was falling for this fierce, beautiful warrior who would cross the galaxy to protect one small child. "The slavers will come here," Tessa said, breaking the moment. "They have tracking technology almost as advanced as ours." Marcus stepped back, his mind already shifting into problem-solving mode. "Then we need to leave. Tonight." The cargo bay of the stolen transport ship hummed with barely contained energy as Marcus made final adjustments to the modified engine systems. 3 hours had passed since they'd escaped, Kepler stationed just ahead of the slaver ships that had appeared like vultures drawn to carrion. Now they were deep in the asteroid field between the Kepler and Centauri systems, playing a deadly game of hide-and-seek. "The modifications you made to the engine signature are impressive." Tessa said from behind him, her voice carrying a note of admiration that made warmth spread through his chest. I've never seen human technology adapted so elegantly to Zephyrian power systems. Marcus wiped grease from his hands and turned to face her. In the dim light of the cargo bay, she looked even more beautiful than before, though exhaustion shadowed her violet eyes. Engineering is about understanding how different systems can work together. Sometimes the most unlikely combinations create the best solutions. Kira was sleeping in a nest of supply blankets they'd arranged, near the environmental controls. The child's breathing finally steady and peaceful. The medical scanner showed Kira's health improving rapidly thanks to proper nutrition and safety. Tell me about your world, Marcus said softly, settling beside Tessa on a cargo container. What was it like before the slavers came? Tessa's expression softened with memory, beautiful beyond words. Our cities grew like living things formed from cultivated crystals that sang in harmony with the wind. Kira's family ruled the northern continent. They were known for their kindness as much as their wisdom. And now Kira is all that remains of 5,000 years of bloodline. Tessa's hands clenched into fists. The slavers want more than just workers. They seek to harvest Zephyrian genetic material, to create hybrid soldiers and workers who combine our natural abilities with manufactured compliance. Marcus felt anger burning in his chest. We won't let that happen. Tessa turned to look at him, surprise evident in her voice. You think I'm going to abandon you now? Marcus reached over and gently took her hand. Her skin was impossibly soft, and he felt her pulse quicken at his touch. I'm in this until the end, whatever that looks like. Tessa stared at their joined hands, then looked up at his face. Why? Your people and mine have had little contact. We are strangers to you. Not anymore, Marcus said simply. Family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about choice. Something shifted in the air between them. Tessa moved closer, close enough that he could see flecks of silver in her violet eyes. Marcus, she whispered, and his name sounded like music in her accent. Yes. Instead of answering with words, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, then deeper as he responded. Her hair smelled like starflowers and ozone, and when she sighed against his mouth, he felt like he was falling through space. They broke apart slowly, breathing hard. I should not, Tessa began, but Marcus silenced her with a finger against her lips. Should not what? Feel something good in the middle of all this darkness? My duty is to Kira. I cannot be distracted by personal desires. Caring for each other isn't a distraction, Marcus said firmly. It's what makes us stronger. What makes us worth fighting for? Tessa studied his face in the dim light. You are unlike any human in the stories our elders told. Maybe the stories were wrong, Marcus suggested. Pulling her closer, maybe it's time to write new ones. An alarm suddenly pierced the quiet of the cargo bay. Marcus jumped up and ran to the control console, Tessa right behind him. The scanner showed 3 ships closing on their position, their signatures matching the slaver vessels from Kepler Station. They found us, Tessa said grimly. Already moving toward the weapons locker. No, Marcus said, his engineer's mind racing through possibilities. We can't outfight them, but maybe we can outsmart them. He began inputting commands into the navigation system, his fingers flying over the controls. There's an old human mining platform in this sector, abandoned for years, but the automated systems might still be functional. What are you thinking? Marcus grinned, the expression wild and dangerous. I'm thinking we're going to show these slavers what human ingenuity looks like when it's protecting family. Kira stirred from sleep as the ship changed course. The child's large eyes immediately finding Tessa. A stream of musical words flowed between them, and Tessa's expression softened. Kira asks if we're going home. Tessa translated. Marcus looked at both of them, the child who had trusted him from the first moment, and the woman who had somehow captured his heart in a matter of hours. We are going home, he said firmly. We just have to build it first. The first energy beam from the pursuing ships lit up the darkness behind them, and Marcus pushed their stolen transport to its limits as they raced toward an uncertain future that he was determined to make bright. The abandoned mining platform loomed ahead like a metallic ghost against the starfield. Its once gleaming surfaces now scarred and pitted from years of exposure to cosmic radiation and micrometeorite impacts. Marcus brought their ship in fast and low, threading between the massive extraction arms that jutted out like the ribs of some ancient beast. "There," he said, pointing to a docking bay that looked like it might still hold atmosphere. "If I'm right about the automated systems, we might have a chance." The slaver ships were gaining fast, their superior engines and weapons making pursuit inevitable. On the scanner, Marcus could see 3 vessels, each twice the size of their stolen transport, and bristling with weapon arrays designed to disable rather than destroy. They wanted their cargo intact. "What's your plan?" Tessa asked, strapping Kira into a safety harness as the ship shuddered under the stress of high-speed maneuvering. "Remember what I said about unlikely combinations, creating the best solutions?" Marcus's hands flew over the controls as he brought them into the docking bay with barely meters to spare. "I'm about to prove it." The moment they docked, Marcus was moving, grabbing tools and equipment from the cargo hold. "The platform's main reactor is still functional. I can see the energy signature. If I can connect our ship's power systems to the mining laser array, ... You want to turn a mining platform into a weapon?" Tessa's eyes widened with understanding and admiration. The extraction lasers were designed to cut through solid asteroid rock. Slaver ships might be fast, but their hulls aren't that different from what this platform was built to slice apart. An impact against their ships. Hull sent vibrations through the docking bay. The slavers had arrived and were beginning their boarding procedures. "How long do you need?" Tessa asked, checking the charge on the energy weapon she'd taken from their ship. 20 minutes. "Maybe less if everything goes right. Then you'll have it." Tessa moved toward the bay entrance, her movements flowing and deadly. "Kira, stay close to Marcus. Do exactly what he says." The child nodded solemnly, then surprised Marcus by taking his hand and squeezing it gently. The gesture was so trusting, so innocent, despite everything Kira had endured, that Marcus felt his determination crystallize into something unbreakable. The first slaver troops breached the outer airlock as Marcus reached the platform's control center. The systems were old, but functional, responding to his touch with the sluggish reliability of equipment built to last. Behind him, he could hear the distinctive whine of energy weapons as Tessa engaged the boarding party. "Kira, I need you to watch that screen," Marcus said, pointing to a display showing the platform's structural integrity. "If any of these lights turn red, you tell me immediately." As he worked, splicing their ship's systems into the platform's power grid, Marcus could hear the battle raging in the corridors behind them. Tessa was magnificent. He caught glimpses of her through the control room's viewports, moving like liquid silver as she fought with a grace that made combat look like dance. But she was one warrior against dozens of enemies, and Marcus knew she couldn't hold them forever. There he breathed as the final connection locked into place. The platform shuddered as its massive mining lasers came online for the first time in years. On the targeting display, he could see the 3 slaver ships positioned outside. Confident in their superiority, they were about to learn how wrong they were. The first laser beam carved through the void like the sword of an angry god, striking the lead slaver ship amidships. The vessel's shields flared and died, and the beam continued through armor plating designed to withstand small arms fire. Not industrial mining equipment, the ship exploded in a ball of plasma and debris. The remaining 2 vessels immediately began evasive maneuvers. But the platform's targeting system had been designed to track fast-moving asteroids. Marcus smiled grimly as he locked onto the second ship. "Marcus." Kira's voice was high with alarm. The integrity display showed red lights cascading across multiple sections as the platform's ancient structure strained under the power demands of the weapon system. "Just a little longer," Marcus muttered, firing the second laser. This beam caught the slaver ship's engines, and the vessel spiraled away, disabled but intact. The third ship was already fleeing, apparently deciding that whatever prize they sought wasn't worth facing the fury of a weaponized mining. Platform. The control room door burst open and Tessa stumbled in. Her gear scorched and blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. But she was alive. Her eyes shone with fierce pride as she looked at Marcus. "You did it," she breathed. "We did it," Marcus corrected. Then his eyes widened in alarm as more red lights appeared on the integrity display. "But we need to get out of here. The platform's structure is failing." They ran for their ship as the mining platform began to tear itself apart around them. Ancient support beams screamed in protest as the massive structure twisted under forces it was never designed to handle. Marcus threw himself into the pilot's seat and fired the engines just as a section of the docking bay collapsed behind them as they pulled away from the dying platform. Tessa wrapped her arms around Marcus from behind, her body warm against his back. "That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen," she whispered in his ear. "You saved us all?" Kira climbed into the co-pilot's chair and said something in Zephyrian that made laugh. Tessa laughed, the first truly joyful sound Marcus had heard from her. "What did Kira say?" He asked. "That you fight like a Zephyrian warrior, but with the cunning of a star fox." Tessa's lips brushed against his ear as she spoke. "It's a very high compliment." Marcus felt warmth spreading through his entire body, not just from Tessa's proximity, but from the knowledge that they had triumphed against impossible odds. Together, they had proven that love and determination could overcome any enemy. "So," he said as they set course for Zephyrian space, "what happens now?" Tessa's arms tightened around him. "Now, we go home." 3 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of New Zephoria, the refugee settlement that had become home to the survivors of the slaver attacks. Through the transparent aluminum viewport, he could see the double moons of Sanctum rising over the crystalline spires that the Zephyrians had grown from the planet's mineral-rich soil. In the gardens below, Kira played with other children, the laughter carrying even through the atmospheric barriers. It was hard to believe that the thin, terrified child he'd found hiding in his supply shed had become this confident, radiant young being who seemed to glow with inner light. Kira had grown not just in body, but in spirit, surrounded by the love of the surviving members of the royal house who had declared themselves Kira's guardians and protectors. "You're thinking too hard again," came Tessa's voice from behind him. Marcus smiled without turning around, recognizing the soft footsteps that had become as familiar as his own heartbeat over the past months. "Just thinking about how much has changed," he said, as she joined him at the viewport. She was dressed in the flowing robes of a Zephyrian diplomat rather than warrior's gear, but she was no less beautiful for the change. If anything, seeing her at peace made her even more radiant. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly, taking his hand in hers. "Leaving your old life behind?" Marcus considered the question seriously. He'd given up his position on Kepler Station, his citizenship in human space, even his savings to make the journey to Sanctum. But looking down at Kira, playing in the gardens, and feeling Tessa's warm hand in his, he couldn't imagine any other choice. "No," he said firmly. "This is where I belong." "The council has made their decision," Tessa said, and Marcus could hear excitement carefully controlled in her voice. "You've been granted full citizenship in the Zephyrian Confederation. You're the first human to receive such an honor." Marcus felt his breath catch. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means your family," Tessa said simply. "In every way that matters. And it means this is officially your home. For as long as you want it to be." "Forever sounds about right," Marcus said, pulling her closer. Over the months, their relationship had deepened from desperate attraction born in crisis to something solid and enduring. They had learned each other's languages, customs, and dreams. More importantly, they had learned to be partners in every sense of the word. A soft chime indicated someone, requesting entry to the observation deck. "Come in," Tessa called. Kira bounded in, no longer the frightened child, but a young being radiating joy and energy. The child spoke rapidly in Zephyrian, and Tessa laughed, translating for Marcus. "Kira wants to know if you're coming to the festival tonight. Apparently, someone promised to show off human dancing skills." "I never promised anything," Marcus protested, though he was grinning. "I said I'd try not to embarrass myself." Kira switched to accented but perfectly understandable standard. "You are a terrible dancer, Marcus' father. But we love you anyway." The title hit Marcus like a physical blow. Over the months, he'd become increasingly involved in Kira's daily life, helping with studies, teaching human engineering principles, and generally being present in all the ways the child's biological parents could not. But hearing himself called father still overwhelmed him with emotion. "And I love you too, little star," he said, using the Zephyrian endearment Tessa had taught him. Kira beamed and threw small arms around his waist in a fierce hug. "The festival celebrates new beginnings," Tessa explained as Kira ran off to prepare for the evening's festivities. "It seems appropriate, given how much our lives have changed." "Speaking of new beginnings," Marcus said, suddenly nervous in a way he hadn't been since facing down slaver ships. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object he'd been crafting in secret for weeks. "I made this for you." The pendant was formed from crystallized materials native to Sanctum, but shaped using human engineering techniques to create something that was neither fully Zephyrian nor human, but a fusion of both cultures. The surface caught the light of the double moons and threw it back in patterns that seemed to shift and dance. "Marcus." Tessa breathed, her violet eyes wide with wonder. "It's beautiful." "It's a promise," he said, fastening the chain around her neck, "that no matter what the future brings, we'll face it together. All of us, you, me, and Kira." Tessa's eyes filled with tears. Tears of joy, he realized, not sorrow. "Is this a human proposal custom?" "It's a Marcus and Tessa custom," he replied, pulling her close. "I figured we could make up our own traditions." "I love that idea," she whispered against his lips just before she kissed him. The kiss was soft and sweet, filled with all the promise of their shared future. As they stood together on the observation deck, watching Kira play in the gardens below while the alien stars wheeled overhead, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A chance encounter with a terrified child had led to the discovery of family love and purpose beyond anything he'd ever imagined possible. Humanity's greatest strength, he'd learned, wasn't their technology or their stubborn refusal to give up in the face of impossible odds, though those qualities had certainly helped. Their greatest strength was their capacity to love across every barrier of species, culture, and circumstance. The festival music began to drift up from the gardens below. Alien melodies that had become as familiar and beloved as any human song. Tessa squeezed his hand and smiled. "Ready to show everyone your terrible dancing?" she teased, "with you and Kira. I'm ready for anything." Together, they walked toward the sounds of celebration, toward their family and their future, under the light of alien stars that no longer seemed strange but felt like home.